Liar. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? What is it? It's Tuesday, April 6th, 2021. Time for another show. The Kagro in the Morning radio show is live now. Let's just go straight to Bill, who knows what's going on every morning. He's more organized with this show than I am, quite frankly. The Kagro in the Morning show, live now. Join me, Kagro X, David Waldman, today for an exciting edition of Not So Stupid Senate Parliamentarian Tricks. Dang, I was hoping to hold out. Yeah, there's some exciting news, sort of, on the procedural front. I mean, it's exciting news, and it's procedural, so it's really not that exciting, but it's exciting for us here on this show. And I'm sure that Joan McCarter, when she joins us later on, will want to talk about it, and I was trying to think about, do I save this thing for, the end of the show, or we can talk about it with Joan? I think we'll just have to do it again, and we'll get some additional insight into what might be going on and how things might move forward from here when we talk to Joan. But it's just super exciting, and I don't know if I can hold out all the way until 10:30 in order to discuss it. But there are some other things that we can discuss, so we'll do our best to push this off towards the end of the show. But you might have read the news, and you're dying for an explanation. And if you just can't hold out, of course, you can send us a tweet. Use that KITM hashtag so that your tweet stays up on my tweet screen, or whatever the hell you call it, for just a little while longer, easier to find. And that way I can respond to your direction for the show. What's on your mind? What are you interested in hearing about? What needs comment? What requires commentary? Is there anything that requires our commentary in the morning? Well, if you're listening, why not, right? So you might as well give us some direction. Some other items on the agenda today. As you may know, there's still a pandemic going on in this country. You might not know that if you are, let's say, governor of Montana, and our governor of Montana, despite having the reputation for trying to beat up reporters when they ask you tough questions, that's Greg Gianforte. You remember him when he had been running for Congress and was asked some tough questions during his campaign, and he charged at a reporter and tried to beat him up, and ended up, the description of what he did to him was that he body slammed him. And of course, that only made Republicans excited and happy. Oh, it's very tough and manly to beat up and or body slam a reporter. And besides which, he's just from one of those liberal media outlets. So they elected him to Congress. And I believe they actually tried to work something out between the reporter and this guy, Gianforte, where he would apologize and give an exclusive interview opportunity to the reporter, rather than, say, have the reporter go forward with a civil lawsuit against him. And they reached some sort of agreement, and then he was kind of like, as I recall, he backed out of the agreement to actually give this reporter the interview that he wanted. It was kind of a dumb deal anyway, but okay. I don't know whether I even have that memory correct, but that's my memory of Greg Gianforte. But we have a new one we can use to replace that one with, and use some actual reported fact to do it. Why not try that, right? Here's the news, or I guess I should say, here's the background of the news. As I said, he's governor of Montana, and so, as you might have expected, as Republican governor of Montana, and it being one of those states where it pays politically to be extremely stupid about the COVID pandemic, he has signed a bill, one of those, ridiculous things that you see circulated in states like this, banning the imposition of any sort of mask mandates, either by any political subdivision of the state of Montana, municipalities, etc. And I don't know whether it reaches mask mandates by private property owners or not. Ordinarily, you would think that would violate Republican, the Republican ethos, if there still is one. But since that no longer matters, witness the potato head slash Seuss controversies where private industry has decided, I don't want to sell this product anymore, or I want to call this product something else. That's now cancel culture, and it's okay for conservative Republicans to use the government to intervene to tell private businesses that they cannot make these decisions about their own products. So, we've gone pretty far afield from Republican orthodoxy. Anyway, he signed one of the anti-mask mandate things, and, well, it doesn't take much imagination to think about, well, what is now likely to happen, but rarely kind of does happen with the sort of poetic justice that we're all accustomed to believe we should be able to expect from things. But every once in a while, the wheel comes around. All right, so Gianforte signs the thing, and now he's got COVID. That's the upshot of it. I know it's a little anticlimactic, but there it is. The story reported by NBC, an NBC outlet in Montana, whichever, I don't know what the local affiliate is, has the Missoula, Montana byline here. Dateline rather. The governor's office announced Monday evening that Governor Greg Gianforte tested positive for COVID-19. Why he doesn't just body slam the virus, I have no idea. Gianforte had just received his first vaccine dose last week. A spokesperson for the governor says they do not know how he contracted it. It was probably germs that got in his face, but okay. And added that he has held no public events since Thursday evening. It's a big mystery. They say his close contacts include one staff member, a member of his protective detail, protecting him from all 11 people in Montana, family members, and friends he had dinner with. But I have no idea how I got it. I'm eating dinner with people. Anyway, the spokesperson confirmed the governor attended Easter services at his church. Big mystery. But he says he wasn't exhibiting symptoms at that time. Oh, in this case, they're offering that as a defense of his having gone to the services. And it's not his fault that they're not saying he got it at Easter. They're acknowledging that he might have given it to other people at Easter. But he had no symptoms at the time. It's like a year into it's the asymptomatic people who are passing this on all the time. But there you go. He body slammed his brain and he forgot that, I guess. They say he has no close contacts from church aside from family members. And, of course, again, aerosols. Everybody in the freaking room. There's no getting through to these guys. So, look, I don't know. The rest of the story, it's pretty short, I think. But here's the rest of my version of the story. Good, I'm glad he got it. I hope he drops dead. Okay. There. Thank God I did not have to go to Easter services and try to be nice to everybody at that time. Now, I have my own religious responsibilities not to pronounce something as broad and foul as that. But there you go. I don't care. He's an idiot. He was always an idiot. He was a body-slamming big bully. Quite honestly, before the COVID thing, I was hoping somebody would body-slam him, I don't know, into an alligator pit, and he would be gone from the face of the earth that way. But I'll take this one. It won't happen that way, I don't think. It rarely does. I mean, we didn't get any justice that way from Trump. Trump, by all rights, should absolutely, positively have died from his COVID. And I don't know. I guess now, is it all right now that he's not president, to say, I wish he had? Because I wished it then, and I said it then, but nobody cared because we're a very small radio show. Anyway, the point is that, I don't know, if he doesn't die of COVID, he should fall into a wood chipper and go that way. He should be gone and will not get that satisfaction probably. The actual news report goes on to say, after all of this, insane nonsense, I don't know how he got it. He's only eating dinner with a bunch of people, and besides which, it's no problem that there's no mask mandates and everything's fine. He just went to Easter services. And if anybody gets it there, it was probably the Easter Bunny that did it, not me. I'm a very good guy because Republican something, America, USA flag. Officials say the governor is experiencing mild symptoms. He is isolating for 10 days and canceling any in-person events until further notice. Too late for those of you who went to worship alongside him. Gianforte's wife is awaiting her test results. Positive. But, we'll wait and see. Staff will be tested Tuesday, because screw them. You'll find out you're positive. That's today, so I guess whenever the results come in. Tomorrow you'll know the governor made you sick too. While you were waving flags about his signing a anti-mask mandate law, you were getting sick and you didn't even know it. Because that's the way this friggin' virus works. It's again, a year now you've known this. And, I mean, this would just serve us right. Okay, so nobody dies. Fantastic. Could we at least, at minimum, get a wave of the disease passing through the State House in Montana and a bunch of people saying, wow, did you know that, this disease is dangerous and maybe flaunting mask mandates is actually a dumb idea and we should all not do that? Is that too much to ask? I think it's too much to ask for me to say, slaughter them all, Lord, smite them with your, it's the season for thinking about things like that. Okay, so fine, too much. Could we, wouldn't this be a good thing if they all got ill and then realized their mistake and then began to proselytize? I think they love proselytizing, right? They'll proselytize for masks and being careful and, oh my gosh, all the things that the rest of you have known for a year about how this disease works are actually true. Is that too much? I don't know. Maybe the radio show isn't the forum to start testing the boundaries with God, I guess. All right. So forget that. I guess I had to vent on that. I take it all back. May they all enjoy many long years of good health. After exhibiting mild symptoms, right, you're all getting tested, yada, yada. First lady waiting for her results. Where do we leave off? The governor has notified all individuals with whom he may have had close contact. And again, I don't know. Now, this even just reading the routine things makes me mad. I bet he didn't. Because he's a big lying jerk and he doesn't know what he's doing. All of the governor's in-person events have been canceled until further notice. The governor will continue to conduct his duties and manage the state's business from his home in Bozeman. Just dump cement on it and never let him out again. As a precautionary measure, the governor's staff will be tested early Tuesday morning. So that's now. It may be a little earlier than they were planning because Bozeman, Montana, they're way out that way. I don't know if they're in Bozeman with him or whatever. So what's it, 7:13? Is it 2 hours earlier? Are they mountain time? As a precautionary measure, right, they're getting tested. The governor and his staff have been tested regularly since he was sworn into office on January. It makes it sound like he was like a careful guy, which he wasn't. And how regularly? Once a month is regularly, but it's not helpful. And he still went to Easter services sick with the virus, symptomatic or asymptomatic, but contagious. And no testing helped there. Unless, of course, it's entirely possible they tested him and they were like, yeah, you're positive. And he's like, I'm not skipping Easter services because then it'll be like the governor's chicken about going to Easter services. And though I've never heard anybody lose the governorship because they didn't go to church on Easter, he was sure, whatever, something. He was personally interested in going, so he went. And now everybody who was personally interested in cozying up to him, go get tested because the governor made you sick because he's a moron. I saw on the Twitter machine this morning when I caught this story that, let me see, where did that come from? That somebody had said, yeah, right, here we are. The very famous person, T1 the infamous, he's infamous as well as famous, says, and I don't know, maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong. He recently signed a law against mask mandates. I believe it. It's probably true. I didn't look it up. We probably should. Maybe there's a job for my son for the summer when he comes back from school. If he can't secure one of the other ones, I can give him work as a production assistant / fact checker. He can sit here and be bored to death listening to the show. It would feel like work. I promise you that. He'd have to get up in the morning and listen to me. What could be more difficult than that? Quite honestly, I wondered whether that would count as work experience once people found out, well, you worked for your dad. That's nothing. Well, I don't know. Have you heard his radio show? It's quite a chore. But he could check that out for me. Anyway, in reading the responses to the story, let's see. I did see somebody say, oh yeah, what was it? I'll have to find the comment now. Somebody in the Twitter thread thereafter said, there it is. I don't know who this is. These are just, I guess, people from Vermont or interested in Vermont. Let's see, does this person say where they're? Yeah, Missoula, Montana. Did I say Vermont? I meant Montana. There's a Mont in there. And I guess that confused me. But Amy Bracamonte, just a regular person from Montana, says, and I guess we should look this one up, that in response to the story of him getting testing positive, she says, if he takes ivermectin, I don't know. Have you heard this one before? I guess if Greg were here today, I could ask him about it. Ivermectin, Imervectin. He will be better in 12 to 48 hours, no mask needed. Now, there will be no mask needed for ivermectin to do whatever it does. But I will point out, well, gee whiz, that does sound an awful lot like Regeneron. And no, the fact that Regeneron or ivermectin allegedly would make you better, whatever that means, in 12 to 48 hours, doesn't mean don't wear a mask. It means wear a mask. But if you do and you get sick anyway, we can help you. Really, I don't know. I have no guess at all as to what ivermectin costs, but I bet it's more than a mask. So, I mean, there's at least that. And now, of course, there's the opportunity for Donald Trump to release a written press release, and someone will take a picture of it and put it on Twitter, saying that he will give ivermectin for free to every vulnerable person in America, and then he can F the F off and go play golf and do nothing while 350,000 people die waiting for him to fulfill his promise, just like he did with Regeneron. And that's where we are, by the way. Despite the big slowdown in deaths, a lot of people died after his promise to pass that stuff out. If you follow my tweets, you see that every night, so it's no surprise to you. But if you don't, and those are some boring tweets, and they're late night, and the numbers aren't super exciting all the time. But, yeah, that's the status of the progress of the disease. And yes, it's still his fault. True, Joe Biden has been in the White House for some time now. Not 100 days yet, but for a while. And things, I guess, are transferring over to his control. But certainly the lack of control over the virus, the coronavirus pandemic, is still very much at Trump's feet and always will be. There's no reversing that. He was the president during the critical period during which something serious could have been done to tamp down on the numbers. And not only did he not do it, he did the opposite of it, as though he were trying to inflate the numbers, despite the fact that he kept insisting that he was trying to do everything to deflate the numbers, including not keep people healthy to keep the numbers down, but lie and cheat about those numbers so that he would look better, which is really an impossible task. There was no making him look good on this. But yeah, 350,000 people have died just since he got it and then got out of the hospital. It seems like forever ago, but it was pretty well past even the middle of the pandemic. It was October 7th or so, or October 8th, that he, having been released from the hospital, probably prematurely, made that pronouncement, went outside and did the video assuring everybody that he was going to send them Regeneron for free. No one got anything, although that's not entirely true. People keep pointing out, well, there's Regeneron available, and if you feel like you need it, and there's only a very narrow, band of time, I guess, a narrow point in time that you can realize that you're coming down with it and get it before your illness gets too serious, but you can't just take it as a preventative or anything like that. But anyway, it's said that there are doctors who have access to it and that there's a supply of it available, but you have to make a request of your doctor. You have to make your request at the right time. You have to get a doctor who will agree to do that, and that it can be made available to you for free. But that's a far cry from the President of the United States saying, I will protect you. I will send it to you for free. Everyone who's vulnerable will have access to it. I'll give it to you. I'll make it available. That's a far cry from, it's out there. Go find it. Very different. And then somebody else just the other day was pointing out, to be fair, you say 350,000 people died waiting for the miracle cure. It turned out not to be a miracle cure. It might not really be all that helpful at all, which I guess is a consideration. Maybe it's best that, we didn't send it, say, at government expense to everybody, and then it was a big waste of time and a big waste of money. But I guess that just speaks to, then maybe you don't make a video as President of the United States on the south lawn of the White House promising that you're going to give this miracle to everybody for free if it's effing fraud, and you should be held accountable just for that. Anyway, okay, that I felt like I had to get off my chest. There's better news about the pandemic, or related to the pandemic, that is out there, including this piece of news, which is, it's in Bloomberg and it's good news, but I sort of feel like we all either know this already or knew it was coming. But okay, officially, Biden to urge making vaccines open to all adults by April 19th. Jennifer Jacobs, pretty good reporter. I think we've called her name a couple of times. Reporting from Bloomberg. Again, I feel like we know this because, and this is probably largely because several states have said, all right, we are throwing the doors open. All adults will be eligible for the vaccines. Some of them were as early as late March or early April. Everybody became eligible. And that's good news, and it's probably the way to handle it. I was a little bit confused about the whole thing where they seem to work very hard at breaking people down into different categories, and there were different rules in different states, but they were generally along the lines of, okay, if you are 75 years of age or older, and particularly if you're living in a long-term care facility, you are top priority. That was the 1A group. Then they came up with, at the same time, they had come up with a 1B group, which was, okay, if you're not 75, but you are, if you have any of the following risk factors, you're a little bit older, you're not quite 75, maybe you're, I don't think they even put a bottom age limit on it, but they said older people, the older you are, the more risk. But also, if you have respiratory disease or diabetes or any of the other comorbidities, it's, difficult to label all these things. It's depressing to call them all comorbidities, but that's what they are. That's the term for it. So you are obese, which they defined as, I think in Virginia, and I guess everywhere else, I don't know what else they would go on. They defined by body mass index. Is that right? BMI. And you put in your height and your weight. And then they say if you're above, the number that comes out of the other end of that formula, then you're eligible for the vaccine. I would say that the number that they set puts you in a place where it's like, well, again, because that's the medical term. If you are over the ideal weight or whatever, that makes you obese. And, it's not the same thing as being on one of the medical shows that they will pay you $1,000 to get on and show how drastically, morbidly overweight you are, and either challenge you to lose that weight or whatever. But yeah, so that's how you get to the figures of half of American adults being obese. Is, well, some people could probably stand to lose 10, 15 pounds, and some people considerably more. It's a problem, but whatever. Anyway, I didn't care because it made lots more people eligible for the vaccine, and that was good news. And I said, I can eat enough to get into that category and stay there. Terrific. I'll get some vaccine. And we did. And then, within a couple of weeks, they basically said, all right, now we're online. We have a Biden administration that's serious about producing and distributing enough vaccine that we can say, throw the floodgates open. And I thought it was odd, though, that they went from, well, if you're this age and you're in that situation, and what if you have this medical condition, that medical condition? I assume they had a 1C or at least a stage 2 in mind that had some parameters to it. And I feel bad for the people who stayed up late, I assume, early on in the pandemic, making these different categories after 1B. But what the hell? Let's just really give it to everybody who wants it. And with so much vaccine hesitancy out there, too, it becomes a pain in the ass to parse the different categories. Well, wait a minute, you're 1C, and you're trying to get vaccinated during the time we're supposed to be talking to the 1Ds, and though you're eligible, you had your chance. I don't know. So states could get confused with their different statuses, and they just said everybody over 18 anyway. Now I understand that Pfizer's results are back on the tests for kids ages 12 to 16, and that everything has come out pretty well, but it's going to take some time, bureaucracy being what it is, before there's approval to give the vaccine to kids younger than 18, but who might benefit from it, or for whom it might help open up the schools, for instance. And I have a feeling that very shortly after this announcement that all adults would be eligible everywhere in every state by April 18th, or at least that's what's hoped, that younger students would be eligible too, and maybe well before the less optimistic timeline of getting them vaccinated by the time we return for another school year in September, especially as many people actually return for their school year in August. So that would be helpful, and we'd like to see it happen, and maybe we'll beat that self-imposed, somewhat fake deadline. Maybe it's even been set up to fail in that sense. Like, we're going to beat this deadline by being less optimistic in the outset. So that's the news. Biden will announce today that he wants all American adults eligible by April 19th, 2 weeks earlier than his previous goal. You see, this is becoming a pattern, and quite purposefully so, I am sure. Anyway, we're now breaking records every day for how many shots are being administered. This is, of course, a welcome change from the way things were handled in the last administration, and why I lay the blame for so many additional deaths, and not just me, actual experts who know what they're talking about, laying the responsibility at Donald Trump's feet. So there we are. That's the news on the rollout of the vaccine. Things are looking better every day. We will return with more exciting news after this. Hi, it's me, David Waldman, your host for Kagro in the Morning. I have good news to report. Many more listeners like you are making critical contributions that keep our show on the air. Makes good sense, of course, and patreon.com, patreon.com, makes it simple. Now you can make easy, secure, recurring monthly contributions to support our show. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. Maybe you'd like to thank us for helping keep you sane during the Trump era. Maybe you're looking forward to in-depth explanations of what's going on in the Biden administration. Whatever it is that keeps you listening, we need your help to keep bringing it to you. And hey, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running with those options too. Thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We literally could not do this without you. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Edwards Radio. I don't know, I came back in very hesitant all of a sudden as I was listening to kitchen noises in the background, our ambiance that reminds you that we are all still on home confinement a year plus later, thanks to the pandemic. But like I said, lots more news on that front. Before I get any further with it, I will break this news. Instead of announcing Greg Gianforte's death on today's show, we'll have to wait until later to get around to that. We can announce the passing of Congressman Alcee Hastings of Florida, apparently, who had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in January of 2019 and has made it this far through the pandemic without getting, or at least falling victim to COVID-19, but instead has died of his pancreatic cancer, still in office. And so I guess the news is Florida's 20th congressional district headed for a special election sometime in the near future. As it happens, there's another special election just going on now, and one just concluded in Louisiana. Was it the 6th district, 5th district? I can't remember which one it was, but you remember Luke Letlow, who was a congressional aide to the Republican who preceded him in this seat, but then he never made it to take his seat because he did die of COVID before actually before the new Congress convened and he took his oath. His widow has now run for the seat and won it, and I gather has perhaps already taken office. I don't recall, although I don't know, did it happen just before or during the recess? I don't know where we are on that one. So again, if I had my production assistant fact checkers here, I could say have Wikipedia tell us about Letlow. What happened? I can't remember his wife's name. So we'll start with him, Luke Letlow, and then wife running for Julia Letlow, and we'll see. In Wikipedia, what do they say? What does the silverware drawer say about what's going on with Julia Letlow? Representative-elect, she's still listed as, unless they're late in updating these things. And Wikipedia has that reputation that they wait until the minute that she's sworn in, and then they'll go and update it. They're usually right on the ball with this stuff. So I guess not yet seated. So because they've been on recess, it wouldn't surprise me if they're just waiting for the House to return next week. Once seated, it does note, Letlow will become the first Republican woman to represent Louisiana in Congress. So congratulations there. And she's, somewhat serious about COVID because it killed her husband. So that's good news. And she has been addressing vaccine hesitancy among Republicans. I don't know how she is with masks, but at least the vaccine is serious for her. Alcee Hastings, in the meantime, they'll have to, I guess, announce a date for a special election sometime soon. That, I guess, falls to the governor, who is a jackass, and I don't think there's anything that they can do in terms of influencing the Republicans' ability to capture the 20th Congressional District seat. But whatever's inconvenient for the Democratic candidates there, you can be sure that Ron DeSantis will try and find out what it is and what's the most inconvenient date for a special election there. Speaking of special elections, I did also see on the Twitter machine that there is one in progress coming up now in the 6th District of Texas to replace Ron Wright, who died of COVID. Just, weird little thread we have going on here, isn't it? And I happened to see Rachel Bidikofer talking about it, just saying apparently it's an 11 or 12 way jungle primary, as they put it. There's, I guess, 12 Republicans running in the jungle primary, and one of the people, I guess, much talked about and maybe even favored in the election, I can't tell from this description, she notes is as this crackpot, only slightly more horrible than the other 11 Republicans running in the jungle primary, citing the Texas Tribune, which has reported the story, and I've seen it flash across the screen a couple of times. Didn't really rise to the level of including in our news roundups, but today's Stream of Consciousness news roundup allows for it. Texas Tribune tweeting, a Republican candidate in the special election to replace the late Representative Ron Wright is facing intense backlash and has lost two of her biggest supporters after saying she does not want Chinese immigrants in the United States. And she appears to be, what's the term? API, Asian and Pacific Islander. I feel like I'm missing an initial in that now. Are we? When I was in college, I think with the emerging term was Asian and Pacific Islanders, but now I feel like I'm missing something. Anyway, I don't know what her background. Korean American. This woman is. Let's take a look at the Texas Tribune article for details on that, so that we know something about what we're yammering about here. Two of Sery Kim's, that's S-E-R-Y, Sery, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, Sery Kim's biggest backers, the first Korean-American Republicans to serve in Congress, withdrew their endorsements Friday after she said she doesn't want Chinese immigrants to come to America. I don't know if it's coronavirus related or not. Let's find out. Patrick Svitek, S-V-I-T-E-K, writing for the Texas Tribune here. A Republican candidate in the special election to replace Wright is facing intense backlash and has lost two of her biggest supporters after saying she doesn't want, exactly what she said, Chinese immigrants. I wonder if they'll give her actual statement here. We'll see exactly how bad it was. The comments by Sery Kim, a Korean American who served in the Small Business Administration under President Donald Trump, prompted California U.S. Representatives Young Kim and Michelle Steele to rescind their endorsements of her on Friday. Young Kim and Steele are the first Korean-American GOP women to serve in Congress. We cannot in good conscience continue to support her candidacy, the lawmakers said in a statement. All right. Well, seems responsible. The candidate has been unapologetic because Trump, right? However, arguing that she was speaking out against the Chinese Communist Party and blaming the liberal media for the uproar. She said she will not back down from speaking the truth about the party. So I don't want Chinese immigrants to come to this country because China is run by the Communist Party and you shouldn't something. I don't know. I guess you could come up with something like, I'm afraid that they're actually sending spies or something. I don't know, some kind of wacky theory. But my guess is that she was really talking about something else. And I don't know whether it had to do with coronavirus or not, or whether she's got an anti-Chinese bias for other reasons. And I would imagine that there are plenty of historical reasons why people from one country or another, especially those that share borders in Asia, might have strong feelings or prejudices about people from other Asian countries. But I don't know. What's the comment? Sari Kim made the anti-Chinese remarks earlier this week at a GOP forum in Arlington while responding to a question about U.S. immigration issues. I don't want them here at all, Sari Kim said of potential Chinese immigrants. They steal our intellectual property. They give us coronavirus and they don't hold themselves accountable. And quite frankly, I can say that because I'm Korean, which is probably not a great thing to do and probably made lots of Korean Americans say, oh my God, what are you doing? But okay, so there you have it. Those are the comments. And I mean, I guess to the extent that you're worried about people stealing intellectual property, that maybe you could kind of argue, you could lay the blame at the feet of the Chinese Communist Party that, you know, they somehow, whatever. I don't know. I don't know whether that's an active program of the party. It certainly could be. But it just sounds like generalized anti-Chinese sentiment. And who knows, it might even be just a sort of self-protective instinct because I'm sure that there are plenty of Korean Americans all over the country who are constantly mistaken for Chinese Americans and attacked for it, either actually, physically, or verbally, or just discriminated against in one way or another. And maybe she thinks it's her way of connecting with a Texan constituency to say, I'm on your side, I also hate Chinese people. I don't know. I don't pretend to understand the psychology of it, but it doesn't matter very much. And the other Korean American women Republicans in Congress say it's unwarranted and they withdraw her backing. So I don't know whether she was one of the leading candidates or not, and it might all be moot pretty soon. Hate crimes against Asian Americans have increased since the coronavirus pandemic started in China, they note here in the Texas Tribune, and we should reiterate, it's important. Trump has repeatedly blamed China for the pandemic and called the coronavirus the Chinese virus. Kim's remarks came less than a month after the Atlanta spa shootings that killed 8 people, 6 of whom were of Asian descent. The comments have received condemnation from groups including the DFW Asian American Citizens Council and, there's the other letter, AAPI, Progressive Action. Is that just, okay, Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. They don't have an A for the and, but Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. Okay. Sari Kim is one of 11 Republicans and 23 candidates in total on the May 1st ballot to fill the GOP-leaning seat of Wright, who died earlier this year after being hospitalized with the coronavirus. Young Kim and Steele endorsed Sari Kim early on in the race, about a week after the filing deadline last month. In their statement pulling their endorsement, they said they spoke Thursday with her about her hurtful and untrue comments about Chinese immigrants and made clear that her comments were unacceptable. We urged her to apologize and to clarify her remarks, especially as hate against the AAPI community is on the rise. However, She has not publicly shown remorse, and her words were contrary to what we stand for. So that's good. Strong stance, I think. I don't know if it'll make any difference, and probably no skin off their nose, but they were probably unhappy to have to do it. Asked for a comment on the loss of the endorsements, Kim provided a statement that said, "I am shocked that in an effort to counter Asian American hate, the liberal media is targeting me, an Asian and an immigrant, in an effort to paint me as anti-Asian and anti-immigrant just for speaking against the oppressive Chinese Communist Party." Way to understand things there, Sari. In the statement, she went on to call the Chinese Communist Party the foremost threat to the free world. Maybe. She definitely thinks so. I think she may even be right there. She says that she has received more death threats and racist comments since the forum controversy than she has in her entire life, and that the voters of the 6th District deserve someone who will fight for them, who will literally put their life on the line for them. Which I guess means that death threats are a good thing. They're an excellent test of her character. So, I don't know. Keep them coming, I guess. I wouldn't recommend making them. But I guess she wants them to continue coming. Or she's lying about how many she's gotten. Or she's lying about how she actually feels about them. Or both. Until this week, Sari Kim was not a particularly well-known candidate in the special election. I guess I just screwed that up for about 1,000 listeners. Now she's your best-known candidate there. But you weren't going to vote in that election anyway, and certainly not for her. The Republican field also features Wright's widow, this is because they're very unimaginative people. But, whatever. It happens all the time, and we certainly have seen Democrats succeeded by their widows as well. Any widowers take over their wives' seats? I don't know if that's happened yet. All right, well, anyway, the field also features Wright's widow, GOP activist Susan Wright, as well as State Representative Jake Elzy of Waxahachie, which, I don't know, does that mean like he's one of the better known candidates, or did they just love saying Waxahachie? On the Democrat side, at least one contender, Lydia Bean, pushed back on Sari Kim's forum comments, thank you, saying they target people like her Chinese-American husband, Norman, and their 10-month-old son. Norman's parents came to the United States from China in 1966, Bean said. This type of speech, no matter who it comes from, puts their lives in danger. Bean, a 2020 Texas House candidate, tweeted on Thursday, "It's racist and it's not who we are in Texas." Early voting for the special election starts April 19th, so not that far away. So keep your eye on it, and if you happen to be in the 6th District, which is, I think, in the Arlington area, get out and vote. And it's with 13 Republicans, 12 Republicans? 11, I guess. Sari Kim, it says in this article, is one of 11 Republicans. Rachel had, I guess, said with 11 others in there. I thought it was 12, but no. So 11 Republicans, 23 candidates in total. I don't know how many of them are independents or whatever, but I guess there's a chance. It's a fractured field, and if there really was somebody that all Democrats would get behind and could really organize and get out the vote like they did in Georgia, Rachel was tweeting about this, it's possible to steal that seat. But there's only 13 days left to do it, so I don't know about that. But by all means, get out there and vote and bring people with you. When they run 11 candidates, I guess anything's possible. Okay, let's see. Speaking of candidates running, can I just do a little plug here for Twitter friend? You maybe follow her on Twitter, and I don't know whether she listens to the show or not, but Hillary Kwiatek, and I think I'm getting the pronunciation of her name right, is, friends with a lot of people on Twitter and running for office at the moment, and having a fundraiser, like a virtual fundraiser tonight. So it would be a good time to find out about the campaign and chip in and maybe attend the fundraiser. Hillary Kwiatek running for city council in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. So she didn't ask me to do this. I just happened to see this on Twitter, and I thought maybe we should announce it and people will throw her a couple of bucks. She's an interesting person and a good follow on Twitter, and you can find her at her name, Hillary Kwiatek, and that's Kwiatek. So, and she's, changed her handle there to Hillary Kwiatek for city council, so you'll know you hit the right person. Hillary, 2 L's, just the way most people spell it. I've seen it with 1, though. Anyway, you might want to jump on Twitter and check it out. She's got this fundraiser going on today, Tuesday, April 6th at 7 p.m., and one of the interesting things about Hillary, many interesting things about her, but she was a Jeopardy contestant at one point, and so she's doing a Jeopardy-themed fundraiser. The little art card for it, the Save the Date card, which I have here, that says, "Ever wondered what it's really like to win big on America's most famous game shows? Join us for our first virtual fundraiser. It won't be, get it? A trivial affair." The get it part is the trivial affair. It was coming up. I was previewing the joke. I ruined it there. Anyway, yes, like I said, fundraiser for her race for city council, and there are special guests, some of whom are best known as former Jeopardy contestants themselves. Let's see, the first one on the list here is Kerry Green. The second, Kristen Sausville, Sausville, a 5-time Jeopardy champ. I don't know if they're all 5-time Jeopardy champs or what. Third on the list, though, someone you may know for other reasons, Scott Bateman, who may also have been on, also a former Jeopardy champion. That's in his Twitter profile, but you may know him better for his creative efforts in cartooning and filmmaking and all sorts of things. And you can find him on Twitter if you haven't so far as Scott Bateman Man, because it's an inside joke, but there you go, Scott Bateman. And Amy D. Stevenson, also, I think, another game show contestant Jeopardy winner. So I don't know what they're going to do. Maybe they'll have trivia contest. Maybe they won't. I don't know. But it's certain to be as fun as a political fundraiser for city council is likely to get. And Hillary's a nice person and deserves your support and has been an outspoken progressive for some time. And why not put someone like that on the Bethlehem City Council? She's such a nice person and good candidate that we don't even hold it against her on this program, where 100% of the participants on this end of the microphone, including one of our production assistants, are graduates of Lafayette College. We don't hold it against Hillary that she works at Lehigh University, which is a great tragedy for all involved, I'm sure. But she's managed to rise above it, and so why not tune in and give her your support sometime today. There's an Act Blue link in her tweet, which I'll share with you. It's an old tweet, but whatever. I'll just put it out there again. Oh, I retweeted it the day it went out, so now I have to do something special to retweet it again later. But I'll share it with you in the roundup, and you can sign in on Act Blue and buy a ticket to the virtual fundraiser. I believe she lists here that the suggested donation would be $30. So if you happen to be able to do that, fantastic. But there's a general admission ticket listed here for $15 if you're strapped for cash. Maybe you can't attend and you want to make a donation instead. That's available too. So she's well prepared there, and we'll send that around and make sure that everybody has a chance that maybe during the next break we can send around for the live listeners the Act Blue link. So I just thought I would do her the favor of bringing that up. Dave R. tells me that the correct pronunciation of the Texas town named in the Tribune article is Waxahachie. I think I said Waxa. Did I say Waxahachie like that? Which is how I would have pronounced it, I guess, if it was like in Florida. They got a couple of places that's like that. But wax, like earwax, Waxahachie, because Texas, and they got to make their A's sound funny and, make things difficult for the rest of us. Everybody's got their colloquial pronunciation. Thank you, Dave, for bringing that one up. I appreciate that. I especially appreciate the contemporaneous corrections like that. It's difficult when you get the news later and say, well, what am I going to do about that now? And I know I'll never remember. This time, perhaps I will. What was the other? It was the name the place name up in Washington area that somebody gave me a great mnemonic for remembering how to pronounce it, but not remembering what the name of the place is. However, if I ever see it again, I'll be sure to remember. I worry about my ability to remember these things long term, but if you can do it contemporaneously, that helps. All right. Other news stories that I totally meant to spend more time on. Still saving the procedural news for later in the show so that Joan gets a good shot at discussing it. I think that's a wise thing to do because it's kind of exciting. This COVID-related news, international news, I just thought I would make note of this. The Hill is where I happen to pick this up because they're very good at self-promotion on Twitter. They do an excellent job, even if they're kind of a rag. News from the UK, where Prime Minister Boris Johnson has unveiled a mass testing program that sounds like it's actually perhaps well designed and might help the UK tamp down on their problems. I can't read you with a straight face, but it doesn't have to be straight faced, to read you the headline from The Hill, just because our puerile interests are piqued here. It's written this way. Of course, Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister of the UK, it's now worded, UK's Johnson unveils mass COVID-19 testing program. And anytime you're unveiling anybody's Johnson, especially the UK's Johnson, or something that Johnson has done, it just is a cause for excitement, I would say. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson announced a national rapid COVID-19 testing program on Monday as businesses began reopening and restrictions put in place to stop the virus from spreading are relaxed. Generally not a great idea. You have to eventually come back, but I like that it's paired with this program. I mean, I like that it's better that it is paired with this than not be. Reuters reported that Johnson said his aim is to provide enough COVID-19 rapid antigen tests to make it possible for UK residents to be tested twice a week. That might have helped in Montana recently, for instance. A move that officials hope will catch asymptomatic cases, because those are real things, even in Montana. Please pay attention. Help catch asymptomatic cases and stop new outbreaks. As we continue to make good progress on our vaccine program, and this is the Prime Minister speaking, so one, he should have an accent, and two, you should know that program is supposed to be spelled P-R-O-G-R-A-M-M-E, but here we do it in American English because it's print. I don't know what his accent is like. Anyway, as we continue to make good progress on our vaccine program, as they might say, and with our roadmap to cautiously easing restrictions underway. And by the way, the road map is backwards. You drive on a different side of the road when following that map. Regular rapid testing is even more important to make sure those efforts are not wasted, said the Prime Minister. Right, true. The news service reported that the UK is likely to reopen salons and other businesses where, I guess that's hair salons, or nail salons, things like that, where close contact between customer and employee occurs within the next week. Other restrictions, such as the ban on non-essential international travel, will likely continue. However, Johnson's efforts to reopen Britain's economy comes as more than half of the adults in the UK have received at least a first dose of COVID-19 vaccine, compared to roughly 1/3 in the US. And that is good news, and we're catching up, but they seem to be leading the world in all this. Important note here at the bottom. Let's see. His efforts are also occurring as many of Britain's European neighbors have struggled to obtain enough vaccine to immunize large segments of their adult populations, hindering economic recoveries across the continent. But they're, of course, making up for it and hindering their own economic recovery thanks to Brexit. We can talk about that in a minute. A number of countries also suspended distribution of the AstraZeneca vaccine due to health concerns, further complicating the rollout across Europe, which, as it turns out, might have been unwarranted. And I guess I'll point this out, right? If at least half of the population, the adult population in the UK, has gotten their first dose of a COVID-19 vaccine, and they're using the AstraZeneca vaccine, you would think that there would be blood clot zombies walking all over the UK, right? It would be Shaun of the Dead situation, and the blood clot zombies would have taken over the country by now. But I haven't heard any such reports, and maybe that's because there's no particular blood clot danger after all with the AstraZeneca vaccine? I mean, I'm reaching it's not a conclusion I should give you as a medical professional. One, because I'm not a medical professional, and two, because it's probably not quite right. But I don't know. I guess if there was really a foundation to the big fear of, massive numbers of people suffering blood clots because of this vaccine, we would have heard something about it. But instead, they just have chocolate clotting going on in UK rather than blood clotting, which is a lot less serious medically, but economically, it's a big problem. Did I put this aside? I don't know if I did, but you may have seen stories. Yeah, I did. Here we go. This one I have from the Irish Times, interestingly, and it may be because the other newspapers covering it from the UK were firewalled, or maybe I just thought it would be funny to watch the Irish poke fun at the British over this. But this is an interesting story. Why not take this diversion just for a few minutes at the very least? We've lost our entire European trade. Brexit's impact on UK chocolate makers. Did you know about this? Delays, paperwork, and additional costs are making British chocolate scarce in Europe, which you might not have known was a big issue, except that apparently a significant portion of European chocolate sales are British manufactured chocolates, which I guess stands to reason. Cadbury, a fairly popular manufacturer. For the second year in a row now, the article begins, Easter will be a largely online affair. That's true for whether you're eating chocolate or not. Oh, we're a little late with the music on this time. Anyway, this with socially distanced egg hunts and virtual church services, except in Montana, where the governor made everyone sick, but that's not in Britain. But there will be one notable difference in Britain, where chocolate makers, who should be celebrating one of their busiest times of year, are fuming instead, and all of them cite the same cause, Brexit. Can you believe that they were caught by surprise that it's actually difficult to export to Europe now? Okay, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. What shall we do? We should continue with the Brexit story. Why not? It's just kind of fascinating to see them reacting to Brexit as though they had no guess whatsoever about why or how this could possibly have happened. But let's see. I got a couple other alternatives on the screen too. But let's go back to this story, and I'll try and keep the Twitter screen open, just in case any of you need to wave any flags at me wildly. So again, the British chocolate manufacturers stung by Brexit here. We've lost our entire European trade, said Anish Popat, the owner of The Chocolatier, or as I guess the French would have it, the Chocolatier. I don't know. Is that how you would? Anyway, it's Frenchified, even though it's in Britain. The Chocolatier, which sells dark chocolate, salted caramel, water... What? Yeah. Dark chocolate, salted caramel, water, ganache, Easter eggs. Water? That's what... It's in there. I don't even know what that means. But anyway, that's what they sell. And other treats, by the way, in case you thought, well, what a bunch of dark chocolate, salted caramel, water, ganache, Easter egg snobs these guys are. No, there are other treats. All sold out of Bedfordshire, about 80 kilometers, that's 50 miles for us here in the United States, north of London. Worse than that, this is a quote now, worse than that, and by which I mean that they've lost their markets in Europe, not that worse than being from Bedfordshire, there's this. It might be a perfectly nice town. We've lost our reputation, and that is serious. We've lost our reputation because when we send pallets of chocolate to, say, Germany, and it disappears or we can't track it, our customers don't blame the courier, they blame us. Well, they should blame you for withdrawing from the European Union, but that's not exactly what he means, and in all likelihood, poor Mr. Popat voted to stay, to remain, probably, but who knows? Let's find out. If it's the opposite, I'm sure they'll point it out. The trade deal struck late last year with the European Union spared Britain from a variety of tariffs that would have inflated the prices of goods that traveled to the mainland.
Though, quite honestly, an actual exit from the European Union should not have spared them that. But okay, they were able to negotiate something. But it has not saved British companies from a maddening, unpredictable array of time-consuming, morale-sapping procedures and from stacks of paperwork that have turned exporting to the EU into a sort of black box mystery. Quite frankly, neither should it have spared them from it. That's what Brexit means. So it was dumb. The trade deal, okay, right, we got to that part. The goods go in, and there's no telling when they will come out, or how much customs duties will cost the recipient, or even where the goods will ultimately land. We send a pallet of drinking chocolate to a customer in Paris on January 4th. Drinking chocolate? And we sent a pallet of it. It came back to our company yesterday. Popat said on April 1st. No joke. He actually said this. It's just embarrassing. So we decided that instead of trying to explain that we have no idea where our shipments to Europe have gone, we should just stop shipping there, he added. Complaints about long and bewildering forms and wayward merchandise have been heard from industries across the country, from automakers to shellfish producers. So affecting everyone. Again, what they expected, I have no idea. And it's entirely possible to, of course, negotiate a new trade deal. But the fact that it's new tells you, its practice is novel. And, they've been together for quite a long time. The EU has been progressing together and working together on lowering customs barriers for a long, long time. And they were very successful in doing so. And the status quo ante, just jumping out of the European Union, brings you back to some very antiquated tariffs and collection practices. I don't know why they thought that they would all suddenly have been modernized and the paperwork, computerized and kept up to date for archaic customs handling. Surely there's, a modernized version of things from outside of Europe and the EU, and but that have been modernized because there have been tariffs collected all along. But I assume that there's some special status that they might afford to Britain, but one that hasn't been updated since before the move towards European Union. It was always going to be terrible. I can't believe anybody thought that it was going to go smoothly, even with negotiations. I also don't know what drinking chocolate is. Is that just chocolate milk? Is that something else? I don't know. You wild and crazy British with your chocolate and the different ways you consume it. In November, the government predicted that the country would suffer the worst recession in 3 centuries. That's a lot of recession. Because of the pandemic, and forecast that the economy would shrink by 11.3%. At the same time, the Boris Johnson administration has minimized the ongoing migraine of post-Brexit trading with Europe, describing the matter as teething problems. Now, to chocolate makers, the issues feel more like bites that are going to leave a mark. Chocolate is, apparently, the UK's second largest food and drink export, after whiskey, according to the Food and Drink Federation. Where did we hear this joke the other day about, I don't remember why we were listening, why we had heard this joke, but somebody saying, what is Britain's leading export worldwide? And it's not chocolate. I mean, chocolate is the second largest food and drink export after whiskey. But what is their absolute greatest leading export? And it was a joke. So the answer was Independence Days. And I thought that was a pretty good one. But I can't remember the context why we were telling it, or if we told it already. Anyway, chocolate exports to all countries hit $1.1 billion last year, and Europe accounts for about 70% of those sales. In January, exports of British chocolate to Europe fell 68% compared with the same period the year before. Yeah, before Brexit. The industry is dominated by a handful of players, including Cadbury, one of the largest candy makers in the world. But following a boom of artisanal bean to bar makers in the States. What's the bar? Chocolate bar. Okay, duh. I'm like, well, when I think of bars, thinking more of like pubs, but okay. They have chocolate pubs. They got drinking chocolate. I don't know what you people are up to. You drive on the wrong side of the road. Anyway, artisanal bean to bar. That's very cute. Makers in the States. Dozens of family-run companies cropped up around Britain, emphasizing ethically sourced ingredients and bespoke batches. They became big sellers in Europe, but have been nearly impossible to find there since January, like a Wonka bar and golden tickets, my God. But they have to hide their chocolate bars inside other chocolate bars. We have customers complain to us all the time, why can't I buy my favorite, with a U and everything, my favorite British chocolate? Said, Hisham Ferjani. I didn't anticipate so many difficult to pronounce names in this British article, but okay, not so bad. Hisham Ferjani, the founder of Choco Dealer in Bonn, Germany, which supplies grocery stores and sells through its own website. We have store owners with empty shelves, and I guess I didn't even anticipate the difficult to pronounce names being German. German names are difficult enough, but okay. The founder of Choco Dealer in Bonn. We have store owners with empty shelves. I can't believe they can't find other chocolates. I mean, don't they make plenty of chocolate elsewhere? Isn't Belgian chocolate super famous? I don't know. Anyway, we have to explain it's not our fault. It's not the fault of the producer. It's Brexit, he said. Ferjani has a list of 100 customers who have asked for alerts once British chocolate starts arriving again. There's some serious devotees. That's great. One of them is Simone Schlief, a fan of The Chocolate Tree, an Edinburgh maker of what the company describes as, quote, visually stunning works of edible art crafted in small batches. Everything's crafted in small batches. We noticed here at home the other day the basic supermarket available Russell Stover milk chocolate Easter rabbits, the Easter bunny stuff, is now labeled handcrafted in small batches. And we were a little bit skeptical about whether or not that was really true, but that's their claim. Anyway, these guys making visually stunning works of edible art, probably, yeah, working in small batches. I believe that. She's, Simone Schlief, especially fond of the whiskey-flavored nibs the company makes. Very interesting. So's my mother, she said, which I don't think she intended to sound like that. Anyway, I would definitely would have bought some for Easter, but I would have been buying them every month. Alistair Gower, the owner of the Chocolate Tree, is just as annoyed. He has managed to successfully send exactly one batch of product to Europe since Brexit, and there were plenty of snafus along the way. The shipment of about $8,000 worth of chocolate sat in limbo for weeks on its way to Holland. Once it finally arrived, his customer was asked to pay the equivalent of about $5,000 in duties because Gower had not filled out the import statement correctly. We'd been told the product would arrive in France, so we put Calais as the point of entry. Well, it went to Rotterdam, where it sat for 6 weeks, he said. Chocolate, sitting in a warehouse for 6 weeks. Through a shipping agent, he managed to get the import duty dropped. He learned a lesson about filling out forms, but that expertise won't help him much. It's impossible to find shippers that will deliver to Europe, he said, because there's a backlog of goods in the pipeline. At Cocoa Caravan, a chocolate maker in the Cotswolds, the stasis has meant that Europe has gone from 15% of the company's revenue to 0. That has caused Jacques Kopp, like C-O-P, Kopp, Jacques Kopp, the owner, to disappoint old customers and put off new ones. In recent months, prospective buyers in the Netherlands, France, and Germany have expressed interest. They say, we found you online and love everything you do in terms of being ethically sourced and vegan. Vegan. I guess they're not milk chocolates. All right. Well, anyway, but how are you going to combat the import-export problem we will have with the European Union, said Kopp. We can't give them a clear answer other than, yes, there will be additional costs involved. Kopp is also confronting a challenge common among small chocolate makers in Britain, importing raw ingredients from Europe. He stockpiled cocoa source, right, in 2020 from his source of choice in Amsterdam. Now that it's time to buy more, obstacles have emerged. Transportation costs have doubled, which is bad enough, but Kopp says his shipper refuses to take new orders because of worries that a shipment will somehow get blocked between Amsterdam and Britain. It's to the point where I'm thinking of borrowing a Renault van, why a Renault? I don't know, and just driving to the Netherlands myself, Kopp said. It's a 10-hour drive each way, but I'm not sure I have another choice. Interesting. And apparently the reason all of this was done in American English, except for the spelling of favorite, is that I guess this was originally in the New York Times, and the Irish Times decided they would run it too because, haha, Britain, I guess. But, they wanted to bring people the news there too. Very interesting. And, somewhat timely, not American politics, true, but it gave us a chance to stretch things out and save the exciting procedural news for discussion with Joan. There's about 6 to 10 million other things that I wanted to bring to your attention. Let's see. Here's something that I missed the other day that I thought was an interesting story. I love picking up all these weird stories about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Not that she's done anything weird, but that she's done normal things, good things, things that people should be very happy about. And the weird part is, and the interesting part for us is, other Democrats finding reason to complain about it. Here's news from Politico. Vulnerable Dems fret after getting a shock. AOC's campaign cash. Now, I've seen people complaining that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has made too much of a celebrity of herself, and all she's doing is raising money for herself, and she's not interested in helping her fellow Democrats. Maybe she's, if anything, she's using all this influence and extra fundraising to run primary candidates against incumbent Democrats, and that's a no-no, and reasons. Even though we've been through the pros and cons of these things a couple times. But okay, right. We understand what they're angry about. So here's what's going on. I'll skip the subheader and go straight to the story. Sarah Ferris, Ali Mutnick, and Olivia Beavers on the byline here. I forgot the bylines of the other stories, but I'll show you the stories and you can find them for yourself. As the midterm campaign's first fundraising deadline approached this week, this is actually last week, this is an article from the 2nd, several, and the deadline they're talking about, of course, would have been March 31st. But as that deadline approached, several vulnerable House Democrats got an unwelcome surprise in their accounts. You ready for this? What's the big unwelcome surprise? $5,000. Why is that unwelcome? Because it came from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. So what, right? Well, Democrats have reason to be in disarray no matter what happens. The New York Democrat sent the contributions to her colleagues to help keep the House majority ahead of a tough cycle without directly contributing to the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee with which she's publicly clashed, right? So she's had differences with the DCCC. You can all imagine that to be the case. And people say, well, she's not a serious Democrat, and she's not really dedicated to helping us keep our majority here in the House. One, because she's running in primary opponents against our incumbents, but very often in places where it's a very safe Democratic seat, and that's part of the strategy. But okay, well, she's not really dedicated to our preserving our majority, because if she was, she would give all this money to the DCCC, and they would give it to the most vulnerable Democrats. So instead, she said, all right, tell you what, why don't you give me a list of all the frontline Democrats, all the most vulnerable Democrats in the House that you say you would be giving money to, and if I don't want you handling the money, how about instead I just prove that I'm serious about retaining the majority by giving the $5,000 maximum directly to all of them. All of them. Your whole list. Because, You're all complaining, oh, she's raising too much money because she's a celebrity. Well, let me hand it out. So she gets the list, and she gives everybody on the list $5,000. Now that's a problem. Bad, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Don't do what the DCCC would have done directly because XYZ reason. Maybe the DCCC said, well, we wanted to do something different, except they didn't. But now there's another problem on top of all this. And here's what it is. Ocasio-Cortez's largesse and an oversight at the campaign headquarters has instead raised awkward questions among her colleagues as some swing district Democrats fret over whether to return her money before the GOP can turn it into an attack ad. So now you have the people who have been complaining she doesn't care about the majority saying, well, okay, she does, but my opponent will say, this person takes money from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and she's a socialist and something, British chocolate getting caught in warehouses all over the place, no mask mandate, potato head, Dr. Seuss. You're right. Huge danger. And I guess here the thought is, well, if you gave the money to the DCCC, they could launder it and give us the $5,000, and it would be from the DCCC and not from you. But, the answer to that is F you. It's $5,000. And if you're embarrassed to take it from a fellow Democrat, maybe you don't want to keep the Democratic majority in the House. I don't know. Is it not a fair accusation? Some members whose campaigns got unexpected Ocasio-Cortez cash are seeking answers directly from DCCC Chair Representative Sean Patrick Maloney of New York and his top staffers. DCCC aides gave lawmakers wire transfer information to Ocasio-Cortez's aides without the approval of more senior officials, according to multiple people familiar with the contributions. Is that a problem? No, it's not. The wire transfer information should be relatively readily available. You can't take money out of people's accounts. It's not secret information. The only thing you can do with it is put money in their accounts, and they give it to big donors all the time if they want to make direct contributions. So they're just making up an excuse for, here's why I'm angry. You shared confidential information, not that I'm getting money from AOC. The real truth is that they're anxious about being attacked for taking AOC's money, which they were going to take anyway as long as the DCCC's name was on it instead. And I agree that creates less opportunity for headlines, but I also think, grow the F up. Anyway, even if imperiled House Democrats refund her contributions now, Ocasio-Cortez's name is almost certain to show up on their Federal Election Commission reports when they're due this month, creating a liability for members of her party, which isn't really true, who have to win re-election in districts where her political brand is poisoned thanks to years of unrelenting Republican attacks. But quite honestly, the attacks were coming anyway, and, even if it hadn't gone the way they wanted, they would have said they take money from the DCCC, which is funded by AOC. They would be attacking you as socialists regardless. You should know that by now. While some are grateful for the infusion of cash, gee whiz, thank God, someone's grateful, at least 3 Democrats have so far either declined the initial transfer, like effing do that if you don't want her name in your FEC report. The rest of you were sleeping. So they either declined the initial transfer or said they would return the money, which won't help at all. Representatives, in case you want to know who's, being like this, Representatives Connor Lamb of Pennsylvania, and I understand for all their districts, some of which I have more or less sympathy with, Alyssa Slotkin of Michigan, who's constantly doing stuff like this, and one of my, someone I wish hadn't done it, Carolyn Bordeaux of Georgia, who I'm sure feels like she's in the same boat. She's Georgia's 7th district. It was a close race. She almost won last time. She's on the bubble, I'm sure. But, whatever. So hopefully Carolyn was not asleep at the wheel. If she wants to prevent AOC's name from showing up in her FEC report, she declined the transfer. That's the way you should be handling it. If that's really a concern, then do that. But complaining after the fact because you weren't paying attention to people who pour money into your pockets, go screw yourself. Several people involved with the episode described it as an unforced error by the DCCC, with the staff of its campaign arm failing to anticipate the political ramifications of putting their party's most polarizing figure on their donor rolls of vulnerable members known as frontliners. Chris Hayden, a spokesman for the DCCC, declined to comment on the details, but said, "We appreciate Representative Ocasio-Cortez's ongoing commitment to a Democratic majority. Due to a miscommunication, some transfers were made in error, but that has been addressed. Normally, swing district Democrats are scrounging for every last dollar to help them secure their reelections, particularly in a first quarter that has been tougher than usual for candidates across the board. But the Ocasio-Cortez donation, these Democrats said, was unsolicited. Oh, no. Just outright helpful for no reason, eh? And came without warning. Who gives a warning? Many of their campaigns did not receive a heads up from the DCCC about the donation until after it hit members' accounts, a move that surprised senior aides and campaign consultants. The GOP has spent 4 years saying the frontliners are all socialists. No, the GOP has spent 4 decades saying the frontliners are all socialists. Now they've got the receipts to prove it. Woo! Anyone telling themselves this won't be in campaign ads is in denial, said one Democratic consultant who works for swing seat members. Of course it'll be in campaign ads. And it's going to be anyway. And if it never happened, it would still be in a campaign ad. In the political donation world, wire transfers are commonly used to quickly move large sums of money from one account to another, particularly in the final stretch of a fundraising quarter and during a pandemic. The Ocasio-Cortez transfers carried clear political risk for some members, however, and some sources pointed out that she could have alleviated the current anxiety by giving to the DCCC directly. But it's her effing money, and go F yourself if you don't want to take it. I mean, honestly, I think I'm actually 100% on her side in this one. After all the complaints that she's not really interested in helping a Democratic majority, and I'm sure some of them are saying, she's not, this is an underhanded stab in the back, and something, blah, blah, blah. You know, if she's not giving enough money to help the frontliners, and then she gives enough money to help all the frontliners, and then they're like, well, we didn't want it. We wanted somebody else to give us that money. You know, what do they say about what beggars can be? Again, I can't remember the... Yeah, right. I thought so. You remember, don't you? Still, other Democrats said they saw Ocasio-Cortez's interest in helping endangered incumbents as a positive sign for party unity, which it is, even if they were stunned by the method, which they shouldn't be. And privately, the liberal star already is personally close with some of the frontliners, many of whom were elected in the same blue wave that helped Democrats recapture the House in 2018. But they want to hide, I guess, from their personal closeness. She offered to make similar donation to frontline Democrats during the 2020 election cycle, but only contributed to those who took her up on the offer, according to 2 sources familiar with her political operation. The sophomore New York Democrat spent years at loggerheads. How many years, by the way? She's a sophomore, so 2 years. At loggerheads with the campaign arm, and is among several progressives who have refused to pay member dues to the DCCC, in part because of its treatment of liberal primary challengers. Her current round of donations alone, an intended total of $160,000, amount to more than half of Ocasio-Cortez's entire dues goal for the 2020 cycle, according to a dues report obtained by Politico. How much more to this? There's a considerable amount more. So let me pause here for this one, even though our break is coming up, to say this reminder of just what kind of dues burden there is on people. And, you know, there's dues with good reason. And like we said, it's about preserving the majority. And so she says, all right, if the objection is that I'm not doing enough to help preserve the majority, I'll help preserve the majority. So she gives $160,000. And as they said, more than half of her entire dues goal, which let's say is $150,000 is half. So that tells you that a sophomore member, a second-term member of Congress, is actually expected to raise by themselves and then hand over to the DCCC $300,000 or thereabouts every year as dues to the DCCC. Now, what are they going to do with it? They're going to split it up and give it in $5,000 chunks to every member of their front line list. So Ocasio-Cortez has some difficulties with them over the way they treat the consultants and people who run primary campaigns against incumbents who are not progressive enough for her tastes. And she thinks that the district could do better. And so they say, what? Well, fine. I'll just make it such that I don't have to give all my money over to you to fund the salaries of people who I constantly fight with. If the beef is, though, that I'm not doing my end of the bargain, holding up my end of the bargain to keep the Democratic majority, I will do it. And then, of course, complaints. Why did she do it? She shouldn't have done it. I need the money to be disguised because of how transparent and open and honest I am as a Democrat. Upsetting. Hi, everybody. It's me, David. Let's change things up from the old fundraising pitch for just a minute and talk instead about how you can be a part of our show. If you've got a smartphone or any other electronic recording device, why not sit down and record a segment for us? Read us an important article and give us your take. Read one of your own original essays, or even just give us your commentary on something you'd like to share that's important to you. Then send the file to me at kagrox@gmail.com, and I'll try and work it into the show. Short segments, a few minutes in length, are easiest to fit in. And of course, I can't always guarantee that I'll be able to play everything, but if you've ever shouted at your radio or TV about something you wish was being covered, here's your chance to change that. Make the show your own. Send your submissions to me at kagrox@gmail.com. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Joan McCarter is with us as promised. And guess what? This is interesting. So I went through all this to save the exciting reconciliation procedural Senate news for her arrival. And she says, you know what was really interesting was the Brexit chocolate issue. We can still go back to that. And it's not that far back in memory here. I guess I'll just sum up. I think we really got the gist of the last article that interceded between the Brexit and chocolate and our and Joan's call and the procedural news, if we want to get to that. And we can still do it. But I think we got the gist of it. The Politico story. Did you hear this one? This one really got me annoyed. But of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez doing exactly what all the moderate Democrats said that she ought to do, and support party unity and retaining the Democratic majority, and gave money out in $5,000 chunks to everybody on the frontline list, only to have them all say, oh my God, now I have money from AOC and I'm going to be attacked as a socialist. I can't believe you didn't just let the DCCC launder that money for you. And okay, I understand the political trick here and everything, but quite honestly...
But it's still obnoxious.
It is. You can't do it that way. Yes, we can. It's our money, you know. Yeah. That's how it happens. Oh, well, you should give it to the DCCC and let them do what they want with it. But what they want is for it to go to you. Also, of course, they want twice as much as it costs to give every one of you the max so that they can pay the salaries of other people, and I understand that. But a lot of those people's salaries are paid to then go and say, everybody run against AOC, or we need to stop her, or we need to make sure that the consultants she works with don't get work with anybody else. And, you know, it's money. And if you don't like it, don't take it. And like I said, the way of dealing with it was, I know people are upset because it landed in their campaigns, and even if they refund it, it'll be on the FEC report. But there was a way to avoid it, and that is pay attention to what's going on with your accounts and what's happening at the DCCC and where money is coming from, and refuse the wire transfer if you don't want it. But instead, you've just been sleeping with your hand out, and then somebody put money in it while you were asleep, and now you're like, I didn't give you permission to put money in my hand. Well, do your job. Okay. I'm annoyed about that one. And
you're rightly annoyed about that one.
Okay. Well, I think that's fair. I'm also annoyed about people in Britain who thought that they could vote for Brexit and still ship chocolate. It didn't say in this article about whether these people supported Brexit or not. And I imagine they were smart enough not to and are just annoyed that other people weren't. But have you been personally affected by this? Have you had trouble getting Cadbury cream eggs or anything? What's the problem?
I think that they do some Cadbury cream eggs here in the U.S., don't they?
I think so. They must.
Some larger corporation, I believe, owns Cadbury. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But anyway, your mystery of water ganache.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Usually it's made with cream, but you can make it without water.
All right.
Which I just learned in the past, I don't know how many weeks from watching, I don't know,
The great
I think it was
Brexit
a
cooking
British
show.
baking show,
Maybe.
actually.
Okay. So you make it
So
with...
you can make vegan ganache.
Okay. All right. That makes sense.
That's
Vegan.
huge
Now I
if you're
can get
vegan.
it. Yeah. Okay. That makes
So
some
there's
sense.
one mystery solved, and
Water ganache.
if Brits had known that it was going to screw up their chocolate, maybe they wouldn't have voted to leave.
Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe enough people don't work in the chocolate industry, but I think they'd probably be rightly proud of the British chocolate industry. But yeah,
Well,
I
they've
could
got
also...
that in whiskey, and whiskey isn't even theirs; it's really Scotland's.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
And when Scotland decides to leave, what have they got left?
Right. Not too much that they're exporting that people like, and a good number of those chocolate, the boutique chocolate operators. At least one of them was I think, listed as being in Edinburgh. So the Scots are making some chocolate too.
There you go, and the Scots are going to leave.
Yeah. Well, they should.
And I don't blame them.
No.
So they can rejoin the EU.
Right. Yeah, and get the preferable
look
treatment
what you've
for their
done
goods.
to yourselves, Britain.
Awfully stupid. And by the way, another Brexit issue. It didn't come up, I saw in the discussion, but I'll bet that it would have been a lot more difficult to challenge the efficacy and block the use of the AstraZeneca vaccine across Europe if Britain were still a member of the EU. I wouldn't be surprised if that would be more... And they do retain some independence and ability to do that, but I bet they would have been able to press in the European Council, and then more people in Europe would have been vaccinated, and things would be better there. So Brexit has been bad for Europe as well.
Yes, it
I
has.
think. Maybe I have the facts
Idiots.
wrong, but it seems wrong. Yeah.
I'm still mad at them for doing that.
Oh, well,
For one thing, I
super
really,
dumb.
really love Great Britain. And it's a fun place to go visit, and I love their books, I love their movies, I love...
Chocolate.
And now I don't want to go there anymore because they did this.
Yes. Well, yeah. Then they did it... Well, I could say they did it to themselves, but I keep... I know it's maybe
Russia
not fashionable
did it
to say,
them
but
in
yeah,
part too.
right. And there's a lot of people that say, oh, stop blaming it on Russia. But, that was very clearly, I think, that's a lot easier. I don't know. It's even easier for me to believe was a Russian operation than the things that I still believe Russia did here in the United States. I mean, that seems so obvious. Like, what could be more advantageous to the Russians than breaking up Western European alliances, NATO, EU, everything. I mean,
here it was more a grudge thing, I think.
I guess so.
We can mess around in the United States politics, and because here they are all high and mighty, thinking they're better than us, and look what we can do.
Right. So
there it was. I think in interfering there and breaking up the EU was much more strategic.
Yeah, and I bet they probably thought that was even less likely to succeed too.
Yeah. Because it was kind of an idiotic thing to do.
Yeah, and it was the foundational motivation behind the establishment of European unity to begin with. Like, let's unify and solidify our relationship as a unified market and as a unified defense unit, because what are we worried about? Russia, well, at the time Soviet Union, and to succumb to Soviet-era propaganda tactics and thereby dismantle, your frontline defenses against, at least, if not military invasion, then at least economic competition and unity that keeps you on the same page. Like, it's astonishing. But
it's astonishing.
Anyway, chocolate, that's important.
And Boris Johnson.
Yes.
I mean, nearly as bad as us with Trump.
Yeah. I mean, he was clearly the British equivalent. of
Yes.
Trump, although he's
I think
a
he's
lot
smarter.
smart. Yeah, he is. He's smarter, better, and more capable, generally speaking, in every single way. But,
But
but
that's
also
not a high
good.
bar.
Right, that's true. Though I did read another story about him deploying a initiative for really ramping up the availability and the usage of rapid testing, so that I guess the goal is to have enough rapid antigen tests out there to test everybody in the country twice a week, which is amazing, and I think could be the key to finally tamping down on their outbreak. In addition to their vaccinating as many people, they lead the world in their rate of vaccination among the major countries, and now we'll be testing people twice a week on top of it and catching people, asymptomatic people who have always been the problem, like the governor of Montana, who just asymptomatically went to Easter services like a dummy because he's a Republican, and that's what you have to do as a
for
Republican.
him.
So, yeah, all right.
All right,
Anyway.
and now to the news that I'm supposed to be here to talk about.
I guess so, but I think you can do whatever you want. But I thought you might be interested in.
I'm kind of curious. I'm surprised, actually, that the parliamentarian did this.
Okay.
And this meaning saying, yes, Chuck Schumer interpreted Section 204, 304?
304, I think.
304 of the Budget Act to say, sure, he can bring back reconciliation bills already passed and signed into law and amend them as frequently as he wants to.
Okay. All right. Is that the way they're doing it? Or are they? I didn't read the details of it, but I have an article on it somewhere. But yesterday I saw the alert go out, and I guess it was accompanied by a screenshot somewhere about that. I thought that the route that they were using was that they could pass a amended or a revised budget resolution, and that if they did that, then they would be entitled to include new reconciliation instructions in it, and then therefore bring another reconciliation bill or more to the floor under this revised budget resolution, which I figured, you never know what the parliamentarian was going to do, but my way of thinking of it was, if you were willing to go through the torture of another 50-hour debate and vote-a-rama for a revised budget resolution, then you deserve a reconciliation bill at the end. But that's not necessarily how they were going to view it.
Right.
But I feel like, all right, if you're throwing the floor open for 50 hours worth of gotcha Republican amendments,
right?
Okay, then yeah, that's the reward at the end. You've opened the floor, and the Republicans can do and ask for a vote on anything they want, and they do it. There are probably going to be more votes cast in the first session of this Senate than have been the case for decades. This is
I
the most
believe
open
so.
the floor
Yes,
has ever been.
if they end up having to do it this way.
Yeah.
The Hill says she said they can do it on 2 more pieces of legislation. I'm not sure if that's what she said. I haven't seen the actual parliamentarian's ruling. Yeah. I've just seen Schumer's reaction to it in the news stories. I haven't seen anything that she's actually said.
Okay. Yeah,
so they're saying 2 more.
2 more. Okay.
The Hill is reporting that it's 2 more. But anyway, the bottom line is that budget resolutions can be revised.
Yes.
So they can bring them back, they can do this, and they can pass infrastructure if they want to go through all of that, if they want to go through the 50 hours of debate again, if they want to go through all those Republican amendments, they can. And Schumer has already shown with the American Rescue Plan that they will, if that's what it takes.
Yeah.
So what I think Schumer's probably going to use this parliamentarian ruling for right now is the argument to Republicans, look, I can do this without you, or I can do it with you.
Yeah, I think you may be right.
Now that we've gotten rid of earmarks, you can get some stuff.
By By doing it in the budget, sure.
By doing it in the budget, you can say, I
they
would
not
like
bringing that
this,
back?
I would like this, I would like this. And we can consider that. We can play nice with you if you play nice with us, or we just pass this without you.
Yeah. I mean, sure, I think
And
that's a great way of doing it.
I think that's because, he's still not saying, yeah, we're going to do this. He's saying, this is an option for us.
Seems reasonable.
And it's an important option since we still don't have agreement among Democrats to get rid of the filibuster. In fact, Kirsten Sinema came out just in a story in the Wall Street Journal this morning saying, no, I am adamantly opposed to getting rid of the filibuster. This place is broken. And something, if we break it more if we get rid of the filibuster, I don't know what her argument is, but
I don't know. You have to end with that, even though it doesn't make sense, because otherwise, what was she saying? So,
you're right.
she wanted to land on that, so she did. Okay.
Yes.
Right. So, yeah, I think this is a great bargaining chip. I think you make that.
I think it is on
excellent
infrastructure.
point there.
Definitely.
Yeah. Like this, there will be an infrastructure bill passed, and you can be a part of it. Either way, really. But if you say, oh, we want this done under regular order. All right, then agree to do it. But if you're going to, stomp your feet and hold your breath, then I'll bring it under reconciliation, which you'll still be able to be a part of. But, if you don't want to be, then don't. We'll just do it. What it means is you can't hold your breath and the American people don't get infrastructure. It means it's happening and you can write yourself out of it if you want to.
Yeah. I think that's what the ruling really does. It's way too early in the process to say, are they going to actually do this? I think.
Okay.
But it certainly gives Schumer a lot more negotiating room.
Yeah. It didn't occur to me that they would win the ruling and not do it. But yeah, especially
they may not have to. I think they will.
Yeah.
I mean, McConnell's been pretty clear thus far. He's saying, we're not going to do this.
Yes.
I am going to fight them every step of the way.
Has he said
it? Exactly what he said.
Yeah.
So.
Has he said it since the ruling?
No, he has not said that since the ruling.
Okay.
I have yet to see a response to the ruling from McConnell.
He might very well.
He's too busy yelling at corporations for getting involved in politics.
Yes, which, as we know, is not allowed unless it's just giving money to politicians. And
specifically to McConnell.
Yes, and standing aside and do whatever you want, but here's our money.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's of course, McConnell has always been, when it comes to money, he's always been happy to take it, and of course he was the big advocate of money as speech, and there ought not to be any limits on corporate donations to politicians. But there apparently should be limits of what corporations are allowed to do with their own product and how to sell it. That they would like to be able to direct from Republican national headquarters. And then when you're successful in selling it, send all the profits to us. Okay, that doesn't sound like it's going to work very well from the corporate side, but that's what, Republicans' newest political tactics dictate. That they're apparently committed to, we are going to run solely on culture war issues, and I'm not sure exactly how, but I'm pretty sure we have a winning message that real Americans want to boycott Major League Baseball, the NFL, NASCAR because they told us off about Confederate flags, and also basketball. And
Dr. Seuss.
And Dr. Seuss and Coca-Cola. And we're pretty sure we've hit the heart of America now.
And Mr. Potato Head.
Right. Yes, true. Okay, for the kids.
Yes.
But, yeah, I mean, that's like kind of an anti-American agenda somehow. But they're pretty sure that, no. The real anti-Americanism is being getting rid of all sports and Coca-Cola.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I guess you guys think you're in touch. Go for it on those grounds, I suppose. I mean, it's not a lock. But
it's really an interesting... It struck me for a long time that Republicans are so remarkably out of step with where society is.
Yeah.
I mean, just on this issue, look at the ads all of these corporations put on TV.
Yes.
You see families with gay parents. You see multiracial families. You see a lot more Latino families on your advertising. You see a whole rainbow of people and sexual identities showing up in advertising on your television because that's where the markets are for corporate products.
Yeah. Gay
They
families
see that.
have money.
This is where
As all
society
families
is.
do. Yeah.
And
They're
Mitch
not
McConnell
invisible.
and Republicans are fighting that. And, you know, in a way they're winning. And this is where we get back to voting rights as the key here in limiting who gets to vote for them, fighting against that cultural change
Yeah.
with the culture war and limiting voting public to just the people who are on their side of the cultural war.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only way you could say that the cultural war is a winning political issue, because it looks like suicide from an objective standpoint. But what if the only people who are allowed to vote are the people who are dumb enough to say, oh, that's it, I'm never watching baseball or drinking Coca-Cola again, and that's a smart idea.
Yeah.
And you should not have any...
And that's what they're definitely trying to do,
Right. That's
is limit it to those voters.
Yeah. That's certainly better for them, but, you know, I don't know how successful it's eventually going to be, but it makes it difficult. And now Democrats, if they want to compete, have to fight battles everywhere over, yeah, you really should, you know, like allow people a decent chance to vote and cast their ballots. And yeah, that's time and energy and money that can't be spent on the messaging that we carry otherwise. What are we going to do if we manage to hold on to these majorities? But that, you know, it's okay. I mean, it focuses the mind, and it's a pretty basic issue. Lots of voters who will say, you bet I'm going to vote for the party that's going to defend my right to vote and that of my neighbors. But and I don't care about the potato thing or what gender it is, and no one should. But,
you know, and that's what's so crazy about it, is it Hasbro who makes Mr. Potato Head?
I don't know.
Whoever makes Mr. Potato Head decided, you know what, we'll probably get a lot more customers if we do this.
Yeah. I guess so.
And it was the publishers of Dr. Seuss who said, you know what?
Hasbro.
We really have a problem with some of these books, and we should not sell them anymore.
Yeah, and that one was a lot clearer too. Like, okay, I mean, if you decided that you need to degender potato, I guess they just now call it Potato Head. It's a little awkward.
You can still get a Mr. and a Mrs. Potato Head.
Oh, okay. But now you can get another
They
one.
didn't withdraw them or anything. They
All right.
just, were doing a different thing.
Even dumber then.
It's just wild that these are corporate decisions being made because they want to sell more of their products.
Yeah, it is.
Because they're in the 21st century with the rest of us.
Yeah. I don't know. And even if they just were trying to get publicity to sell more of their products and didn't necessarily endorse any particular philosophical approach to the market. Again, what's the issue? I mean, Republicans love to complain about things, but I've never really seen them quite as openly say, no, this is going to be a platform, as opposed to, well, we're conservatives and conservatives complain about change. So, but also, we're really about taxes and something family values, which I guess was an early signal on culture war stuff. Because
but family values used to just be gay marriage and abortion.
Yes, right. And
now it's your kids' toys.
Right. Yeah. What about books that you were never going to buy and you probably didn't even know existed, quite honestly, because a lot of those titles have been out of print for a while, but it was never officially announced that they were never coming back. Did you see I don't know which Republican House member it was who tweeted out her picture of her Dr. Seuss shoes and how she was making some point about
Yeah, I
What was the
am
point?
mad at Dr. Seuss Publishing for taking away these books, so I'm gonna buy Dr. Seuss shoes to
Dr.
show you how
Shoes.
I have no idea what her point was,
I
but
don't know.
this is what we're dealing
It
with.
would be funny if they thought Dr. Scholl's was Dr. Seuss. That would be something. I'm never going to buy his insoles again. But what are Dr. Seuss shoes?
You can get sneakers that have a print of Dr. Seuss characters on
Okay.
them.
And was
So,
she
and that's what
burning
she was
them
wearing
or
to own the libs on canceling Dr. Seuss.
was that like I'm walking all over Dr. Seuss, or because
No,
don't
I'm
they get
canceling
money
the libs by
wearing
showing
shoes?
my love for Dr. Seuss.
Oh, but we love Dr. Seuss.
We love Dr. Seuss. It's just
I don't.
these
We love them first.
these
Get out.
people.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not certain what they. I guess. Yeah, but I mean, I guess it's part and parcel with like I'll show you. I'll read Green Eggs and Ham, but that's not going away. But it's Dr. Seuss, and you hate Dr. Seuss. I don't. I don't. If anybody is, remember Dr. Seuss is doing this, and think about how
Yeah.
dumb it would be to say Dr. Seuss hates Dr. Seuss.
And you just spent who knows how much money on those sneakers.
Right.
On the libs for
Right.
canceling Dr. Seuss.
I don't.
When
get
it was
that money.
Dr. Seuss that canceled Dr. Seuss.
Yeah, and
Now
they got
have
more money
of
now.
your money.
That's great. So somehow the shoes, I don't know. That's even dumber. Like, but all right. So you have shoes that there's no. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Well, anyway, I guess the good answer is these people are too dumb to listen to about whether or not you should be allowed to have a second reconciliation bill. And on that basis alone, the parliamentarian says, go for it.
Yes.
I don't know. That is very... No, I didn't see that one. Thank God. But now I'm going to have to go look for it. They really surprised
Anyway,
me
that
every
was
time.
fun. But
Okay.
back to the parliamentarian.
Yes, okay.
Back to Republicans on infrastructure.
Sure.
Infrastructure right now apparently is just roads and bridges.
All right.
What's really interesting to me is how
too.
much they're recycling all of the arguments that they made against the American Rescue Plan, the COVID relief plan. One was that, none of this stuff in there, only a third of the stuff in there is really about coronavirus.
Okay.
Never mind that they were dealing with the effects of the coronavirus on the economy and on people's lives. That wasn't really about fighting the virus. So we can't support it, but, here's $600 billion. That's what we'll agree to. You can spend that much. They're saying exactly the same thing about the infrastructure. Well, only 30% of what he's got in that plan is really infrastructure.
I see.
Is really roads and bridges. And Roy Blunt actually said this Sunday. He said, okay, maybe we'll spend $615 billion. We would agree to $615 billion.
Okay.
Like they're not even trying. They're just recycling what they said about coronavirus to fight infrastructure.
Yeah. A lower number and a very narrow definition of what it is. And I mean, that is always their tactic, and that, and of course, probably insisting that passing a bill like this will be so devastating to the economy that it'll destroy jobs and everyone will move out of America or something. But that's their standard play too. But yeah, they'll all be saying none of this stuff is infrastructure, but then they'll all be begging for projects that aren't roads and bridges, but they'll insist are in fact infrastructure, and they are. They'll be right about that. It's just
And they'll get their stuff in, and they'll say, it could end up that they get their stuff in and then refuse to allow it to pass. And so Schumer has to do it by reconciliation, and they all vote against it.
Yes.
Even though it has their stuff in it.
Right. And then, of course, they'll
That's
brag about it.
probably how it's going to play out, because that's what Republicans do.
That's exactly what they did this time. There's all kinds of this week when they were off, all the Republicans were home having press conferences announcing the fabulous new programs that were being funded in their districts thanks to the American Rescue Plan, which they voted against, and they're called out on it, and they say, I agreed with that part. But you can't vote.
That part was okay. I just
Sure.
couldn't support all the other waste, fraud, and abuse.
Yeah, right. Which is defined as stuff that's in other people's districts, or at least
Right.
Democrats. Right. Well, okay. I mean, good that they're playing the standard game. I guess means that Schumer has this opportunity to, push them aside if necessary. But I loved your point
necessary.
about this. That you can now say you are invited to join and reach across the aisle. We'll try it that way first, and if you won't, we'll try it the other way. And you're still invited to that game because there's a second vote-a-rama on a reconciliation bill. It's going to be another 70 hours for you to add any amendment you want, and then you won't, but then you'll take credit for the stuff we do. Well, fine. So long as it fixes the economy, I guess we're all happy.
And by the way, all of this is extremely popular with the American public again.
All right. Good. Then I'm willing to do it. And we thank you for reminding us of how popular it is. Thanks, Joan. We'll check in again next week.
All right. Bye-bye.
Hope you get your chocolate.
NetworksRadio.com. You have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
That's right. Okay, much more, of course, coming up next on the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Justice Putnam. I don't know if he's going to spend as much time on chocolate, but guess what? Georgia's Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger tried to explain why he actually supports the new state voting bill there that strips his power after he said there was no widespread fraud last time.